2, 1. We are recording episode 270 with Mr. George Isaac, author of Your Business, Your Family, Your Legacy. And wait, is it? Sorry, I messed up the screen. We spoke before, not officially on a podcast, but we spoke about wealth management. And that's something that, as I was just telling you, it's over my head in the same sense that as a biology major, playing a guitar is over my head. Learning how to throw a baseball is over my head. But I think that it will be beneficial to do episodes like this because, as I was just telling you, my friend Roger Williams, an author, but he's also a computer engineer, and he comes on every week and just kind of explains something new to me in the field of like engineering or coding, and I am just learning it slowly. And I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think I can speak for a lot of people, probably my age group, 30, maybe a little younger, a little older, who wealth management kind of terrifies me because I don't understand it, and I know I should. But you being who you are, I think it would be very advantageous and beneficial to just do like a series of just 30-minute episodes where you are the guru and you're Michael Jordan, and I'm like, all right, how do I dribble? And it's like, we'll get to the game-winning jump shot later. Like, let's learn how to dribble. But before I keep rambling on, because I already have been, how about you introduce yourself, sir?
Want me to introduce myself? Is that what you said?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Sure. Okay, I didn't hear. Well, you already said I'm George Isaac. I live in Santa Barbara. I spent a long career in multiple areas. I started off as a professional management consultant at Deloitte Consulting. Worked my way up to partner. Then I joined our family business. I was a Gen 3 CEO. Then I joined a public company where we consolidated our industry and created $1 billion operating entity. Then thereafter, I was pretty much doing private equity and investing in our funds and family business consulting. So I grew up in a family business, so that was kind of my roots, kind of programmed to go into the family business. I chose not to when I got out of college and graduate school because I felt I needed other experiences before I joined our family business. So that's kind of, in a real quick nutshell, what I've been up to. I've served on a bunch of boards and spent a lifetime of in business, which I was thoroughly enjoyed and considered a treat to be able to have a career in business in a variety of areas.
That's what you said at the beginning of your book, which will be in the description and the top comment. Your dad asked you if you wanted to take it, and you like respectfully declined, and you're like, I'm going to go do kind of, in lesser words, I'm going to go do my own thing first. And that you talked about, there are like death spirals, right? It was something like 85% of family businesses are destined to go down that route after second gen or third gen. And do you think that would be, again, from, like I just said in the introduction, my completely uneducated mind in this, I know cellular biology, not this, but it kind of seems like that might actually be the way to go, right? Because if you just come into it, right? If Joe Rogan was my dad and he just handed me his podcast, like, I don't think I would learn how to do it. It would just be like, I have the biggest podcast in the world, but because it's like I'm above my parents' garage with my flag, like, and I'm learning how to do it as I go, send out emails, find people, learn what to say, what not to say. And then in time, I learn it from the ground up. Do you think that is the move to, as you said, a successful $1 billion business? Do you think that's the move, is to not take the reins kind of just as the next in line, but rather to go out and learn it on your own?
Well, I think there's a couple issues that you're getting into. The one that I on a personal level is developing your experience and self-confidence. And when you join a family business, and we grew ours significantly over a short period of time, so I should feel really good about that.
Yeah.
But yet, it's my family's business. My name's on the door.
Yeah.
And basically inherited this business. And so working elsewhere and learning some skills, making some mistakes where you learn, and getting promoted gives you a sense of self-worth and self-confidence. So when you get in the family business, you're able to kind of push through some of the issues, that either business issues or often family issues, and realize that you know what you're doing and you feel good about it, and it helps you. In my particular case, spending 11 years as a professional management consultant in and out of numerous industries and numerous functional areas, I value that more than my MBA. It was short lifetime of a decade of just basically on-the-job training.
Yeah.
So when I joined our family business, or for that matter, any business, I had a wealth of experience that I could transport from what I learned over the prior 11 years to bring into our business, which is what we did. And so it was very, very helpful. And I encourage most families, that it's great. And it's probably, there's some sense, I mean, I hired in a CEO, there's probably some sense to work your way up through the organization.
Yeah.
Our situation, that wasn't possible because we had a relatively authoritarian CEO, my father, and he called the shots. He was a bright guy. He did a great job, but he didn't develop people underneath him. So there was no one there to really take up the reins, and that's partially why I ended up coming in, is because of that situation.
Yeah. It's kind of like a Steve Jobs character or something, right? It's like there's no the apprentice, there's no Jobs Jr. coming up and like he's going to take over the reins of Apple. Like Steve Jobs was like sleeping on futons in college and would collect cans to sell for change and would walk to the soup kitchen. Like dude learned how to hustle from the get-go. And I mean, not to go on a side tangent, but he used to go sit on Steve Jobs used to go sit in on calligraphy classes after he dropped out of his actual courses. He went and sat on these. He didn't know, he said this at a commencement speech, he didn't know what he wanted to do with it or if he even wanted to learn it. He was like, it just tugged at like my heart, and like he's like, it tugged at my interest so much that even though I wanted to learn how to like build computers, he was like, I had to go sit on these classes. And he later said that was the actual inspiration for all of the original Apple fonts, which I'm too young to know, but he said is the first sort of deviation from just normal print on computers. So all the fonts that you could find on the early Apple, the Macintosh computers, were directly from his interest in those classes. But the point is the point of me saying that is like, it seems like you kind of have to go on those side journeys, because otherwise, like you said, you said you grew your business sixfold or eightfold?
I was sixfold over 8 years.
Yeah, sixfold over 8 years. I knew I had the numbers, but you also talked about, and you and I spoke about this, that a lot of businesses fail with multi-generation. And to me, again, in my limited mindset, I just have the view of like the spoiled son just comes in, okay, I'm running this thing now, like hasn't earned it, versus the guy that clawed his way to the top. Do you think that almost has to be a prerequisite? And I know I just kind of asked that question, but it's one thing that from an outsider, with someone with no financial experience, it kind of seems like that's what you have to do, is because otherwise you're kind of giving the keys to someone that's never driven.
There's this longevity issue, or helping multi-generational business last, is a pretty complex issue. There's the normal business issues. Do you have the right strategies? Do you have the right management team? Do you have the right financial, wherewithal and capital base, right markets, and so on and so forth to run the business? And so that's what every business has, right? So there's nothing necessarily unique for a family business. But where we get into trouble in our area, the family business world, is the family dynamics piece. And you have, as you move down through generations, all of a sudden it's supposed to, the dad being the owner, and then there's brothers that are being owners, and then there are cousins that are being owners, and cousins who are raised in different households with different values. And some of the cousins might be involved in the business, and some might be living, far away. And so all of a sudden it's like, what are the goals of the next generation? And what are the reward systems and desires for the business versus cash to the family, and governance, and all kinds of family dynamic issues that need to be addressed. Otherwise, those issues start eating away at the fabric of the business. We start having family problems, which can quickly become business problems.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen actually really, bad decisions, outright dumb decisions made because, I'm not supporting this guy, because he's not a nice guy or whatever.
Yeah, screw that guy. Yeah.
And so you end up where problematic family dynamics can really cause a problem. Or it could be something just as simple as some of the family members who are not involved don't want to own any liquid ownership in the business. They want cash and they want to get on with their lives. So how do you deal with those issues? So there's there's all kinds of issues associated with ownership alignment, being certain that the owners are on the same page. And as that moves down through generations, that gets more difficult because some are less connected to the business, some live far away. They look at the business as a piggy bank, and the management team that's there is kind of in between them and the cash. And so the management team may want to have capital stay in the company to grow, and the others are saying, well, where's our dividend? And so you get these kinds of situations. So that's part of the challenge.
Yeah.
And that's why succession planning is so important.
Yeah.
When you transfer from one generation to the next.
Yeah, that's what I kind of family problems becoming business problems, because now all of a sudden, instead of making the calculated tactical maneuver that you need to, instead it's like, that asshole got really drunk at New Year's last year. He drank too many martinis and called my wife fat. Like, I'm not calling him. I'm not going to help out his department, right? The imagery in my mind is like, just to make a broad generalization, is like Saudi, like trillionaire families, where it seems like after 3 generations, there's like 100,000 technically princes driving around in like chromed out Lamborghinis and stuff. And it's like, that guy doesn't seem like he has the business in mind. Kind of seems like he just was born into like, hey man, I got a bank account with 9 digits. Like, let's go have a party. It seems like that happens, right?
Well, that's a little more vivid than
sure, but
what I see. But I'll give you one that's I think a good example. I was working with a family business that was heavily involved in real estate.
Yeah.
And one family member, 95% of his net worth was his 5% ownership in the business. So, in the family business, real estate, the guys that were in control, running a big company as executives in the board seats, wanted to keep all the capital in the business to keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, they had an aversion to debt, which is, even more so in real estate. They typically have a capital structure, but have a debt layer. So they were really kind of hoarded the capital and didn't do distributions. And this guy needed distributions to live on. So there was a huge conflict. If you're going to advise that individual, you'd say, this makes no sense for your personal financial plan to have all this money tied up in a liquid business that you need to live on when they're not giving you distributions. You don't have any control. You're not on the board. You own a very small percentage of it. So that's just a structural problem that should have been addressed, or could have been addressed in a multiple variety of ways. It could have been addressed when his parents were passing down ownership interest to the next generation, or it could have been addressed with some type of an agreement in their shareholder agreement where someone can sell their stock at a fair price so they could diversify their portfolio, and so on and so forth. So, there's a lot of reasons why we get into trouble with family. It could be not being nice or not sharing information or, some of those kinds of things, but it could be just structurally, it just doesn't make sense. And the one thing that I've learned actually recently, as you keep learning in this industry, is that, I used to think you want to make all family businesses last, which I do,
mm-hmm.
with everybody in it. But yet that doesn't make sense. Some of the people, it doesn't make sense for them to be in.
Yeah.
And some people may need less risk and more assured income, cash flow.
Yeah.
So sorting through that and figuring out who belongs in the business and how you do equitably deal with inheritance and value of the company and the parent's estate is a separate issue, and you can realign things so that you meet everybody's needs. And the people that want to be in the business, that kind of belong to be in the business, can own the business stock, and the others that don't might own other assets, or maybe they own the plant and property that
mm-hmm.
the operating company rents, so they get insurance. They can get a rent check every month distribution.
Mm-hmm.
And the operating company guys can take the risk, guys and gals can take the risk of running that business. There's a lot of ways, and there's certainly, in between types of alternatives. And I think that's having success is getting everybody aligned properly. Not everybody has to be in the business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was just trying to, like, again, put in like an analogy for like myself to understand. Like, I have 3 brothers, right? What if my dad handed down, let's say, the podcast business, right? Let's say this is a generational thing. My dad hands me the podcast. Like, is the move necessarily, how do we make it last between 4 brothers? Or is the move like, hey, I'm the one doing podcasting. Like, how about I take control of it? I'll buy you guys out, or you guys can get dividends, but like, you don't actually have an influence. Like, you don't have like a vote on the board. Is that Is that like two ways you can go about it? You can just buy people out, so you don't end up having 5 members, 20 members, 400 grandchildren, and all of a sudden that turns into the whole Saudi prince scenario? Or is it you basically you'll get you'll get a paycheck every quarter, but you're kind of no different than a shareholder? Is that what you were saying?
There are multiple ways to kind of address it. What we did in our family was we sat down. There were 8 of us in my Gen 3,
Mm-hmm.
and before I left my partnership at Deloitte, which was an achievement and a career for me,
Yeah.
and something I really love doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to be certain that we were all on the same page. So we sat down and figured out, what do we want to do with this business? And kind of the first question is, do we want to keep it? Yeah, of course, our parents wants to keep it, and they've given it to us. They've worked hard and dedicated their lives, so they could have something for their kids. But it really comes down to, what does our generation want to do at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And so we kind of work through. Yeah, we want to keep it. Then the next question is, who should own it? We got 8 people. 4 of them are going to be working in the business. The 5th one could be active in another way in the business. The other 3 have no business interest and no interest in being in the business. So in our situation, we talked through as 8 of us with nobody else in the room. And we decided that 5 of us would own the business as equal partners. And we figured out a way to equalize 20% each. And the other 3 we would buy out at fair market value through an appraisal, very above board, no discounts for minority shares or illiquidity. And so they got cash for their value and basically got their inheritance at that point in time turned into cash, so they could diversify and invest their funds in a way that they were comfortable with, not being illiquid family business owners because we wanted to keep all our cash in the business to grow it.
Mm-hmm.
But to avoid that conflict, we were able to do that. And also, it had some other ramifications because, as CEO, I was a little concerned about, we're going to take some risk and try to go for it. And, obviously it worked out pretty well, but it may not have worked out well.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be the guy that blows my cousins who had nothing to do with the business inheritance, so there's a lot of dynamics, and it's really kind of sorting through what are the needs of the individuals and how do you scratch them? How do you meet those needs? Not only day one, but what people will learn is over time needs change, right? So when we were all young and charging to build the business, there came a point in time with some of my older cousins said, when are we going to start having some distributions?
Yeah.
So I can, participate, because we'd have these board meetings, outside board, fiduciary board, and I'd put these nice fancy charts up showing these growth rates and value of the company. But, one of my cousins came up and said, we're seeing all this net worth increase, but, I'm not seeing any of it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like having this diamond in the family. It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's a diamond in the value in the family that we all own, and it's gone up in value. And then we're going to just give it to our kids after we pay estate taxes, of course.
Yeah.
I'll have the diamond. But, what's the purpose of the diamond if there's no liquidity?
Sure.
So, there's a lot of issues along this, wealth management side of the family business that quite often is not addressed, and too often is assumed that the prior generation just divvies everything up. Everybody gets a third of the stock, where that's not a good fit. And so part of what I try to do is work with families to think through and communicate with the next generation in terms of what their interests and needs are, so we don't have situations that are really out of whack.
Yeah.
Another example, Tommy, is I was working with another family, 3 boys in the business. One boy did not like the business, had no desire of being in the business, didn't particularly do a very good job, kind of considering he didn't like it,
Sure.
didn't want to be there. You expect that, right?
Yeah.
So, but he's there solely for one reason, because he got a good paycheck.
Get that cheddar.
And if he wasn't there, he wouldn't get that. So he almost was financially trapped.
Yeah.
To be in the business, and that's not what most parents would want. It's nice to
that's not a healthy relationship.
No. So there's a lot of human aspects that we need to talk about and think through with families to help them understand, that aspect of multi-generational family businesses.
Yeah. There's kind of some philosophy in that, what you said about the diamond. I don't know if you've ever read any Alan Watts. He's a philosopher that died in 1973. I don't know who decides who's a philosopher, but he's a philosopher, and I love listening to his talks. He's really great English grandfathery voice, but he would talk about things like that, but not necessarily as like, not with like family generational wealth, but he called it the great golden goodie. And he'd be like, there's no, if you cannot live today, there's absolutely no point in planning for the future. He's like, that's not to say like full on carpe diem, like burn it all out today, and then you wake up tomorrow and it's like, oh shit, I got bills to pay. He was like, by all means, it's a great thing, plan for the future. You have your job, you have your kids, you got your whatever. But he was like, if you can't enjoy it today, well, then eventually, then being X, the moment on the horizon 10 years from now, when X arrives, you're just going to be at X, and now you're going to be projecting Y. But there's no point to the actual thing. And then you finally get to the end, finally get to the finish line, and you're like, we did it. And then you die, and it's just over. And he's like, we thought our life, I think the quote is, we thought our lives as analogy with a journey or a pilgrimage with some finish point to get to, heaven, success, happiness, whatever it is. But the realization at old age is that it was a musical thing, and we were supposed to dance and sing while the music was playing. So is there, twisting that into the diamond analogy? Yeah, I mean, do you all have to decide? Are we going to pass this diamond on, shave a little bit off, live comfortably, but pass the diamond on? Because I mean, ultimately, it's like, why are we going to work so hard to have this when it's like, what if we just split it up and go have a party now? Like, go live it up now. Like, what is the tug of war of that? Because part of it's like the only reason we have it is because our parents gave it to us, which was like an altruistic, almost philanthropic thing. Do we pay that forward, or do we live it up? Is there some sort of like ethical, moral, familial kind of dilemma?
Well, it's certainly a decision that the heirs can make. I can speak from a lot of my experiences, and that it's not the interest of the prior generation to work hard, grow a family business for future generations, and have the next generation just say, oh, let's just live it up and
Peace.
let it go to pieces. There's a responsibility with inheriting or owning a family business, and it's to be a steward, in my mind. Personal, stewardship, and that's what I see more often. Is people are very interested in preserving, protecting, growing their family business and doing a good job. The ones that just want to sell it and live on the golf course the rest of their life, start at the age of 30. I don't see that, and I have some circles of some very high net worth clients and friends, and I'm very pleased to see how many of them are very, very serious, whether they have had a liquidity event in their family offices where all they have is a pile of money to invest, that they are very professional investors, work very hard at making good choices and good decisions. Think about the spending rate, consumption of the wealth versus the reinvestment and growth of wealth. And so that's much more common than the spoiled little next generation trust funder that not that they're not there, but I'm not seeing that. And we're involved with Young Presidents Organization, YPO, and in that group, these are serious people that want to do a good job. They're interested in philanthropy, they're interested in growing their business, they're interested in being successful. And this is a lot of fun. Where can you go where you're kind of the boss? You get the rewards, you get to make the decisions. When I left consulting, which when I'm doing it now, so I love consulting, all aspects of it. But the firm was wonderful. I was a young partner. They didn't want to see any young partner leave, and so they gave me a 6-month leave of absence to go down and fix my family business. So I joined the family business, and 6 months later they called me and said, "Okay, you ready to come back?" I said, "No, actually, no. I'm really, really engaged." They go, "Well, you want another 6 months?" And I go, "No, thank you.
Yeah.
But I really like running a business."
Yeah.
And so it's an honor and it's a privilege to have a business that you can get to run, either a CEO in my case or in a senior position like other family members were. And you go to work each day and it's your business. So it's not a chore, but there's a responsibility, and I think that's what I see, and that's certainly what we want in my generation. For the next generation.
Yeah, right. It's like getting your own house versus an apartment. And I don't know why I'm trying to use that example because I've never owned either. But right, it's like having your own house. You can kind of go into it and tweak with it. And I know I said 5 more minutes. We're at 25 minutes recording. I said I'd let you go at 30. Yeah, for everybody listening, we're doing little 30-minute episodes. Oh, what I am gonna do is forget the house analogy. Is oh, no, I'll come back to it. Is I was gonna say I could it would be interesting is because I have on people that are well versed in things that I know nothing about, like aerospace engineers, Delta Force, um, people, sci-fi authors, things that I don't understand at all. What I do is sometimes I'll like field questions for them. I'll find like forums online about that specific topic, and I'll say, "Hey, I'm having this guy on my podcast again. Here's episode 1 where I talked to them about XYZ. Does anybody have any interesting questions?" And I can do another episode and sort of pass them along. And that's how people get engaged. It's like, oh yeah, I love that author. Could you ask him this? Or, a lot with like the Delta Force guys is a lot of like young guys, like, 21 jacked up, and they're like, I want to be a spec ops operator. So they have their questions. Would that be something you'd be interested in? Because one of my good friends is actually, he's kind of like, yeah, self-made financial consultant. And I know he has like a whole website with a bunch of people on it. I think he could provide some really cool questions. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, if it's family business focused,
Yeah.
because that's my space. That's what I
Yeah.
write in, I teach in, I
Yeah.
consult in, and I basically lived
Yeah.
growing up on the same block as the my aunts and uncles in the
Yeah.
family business. I mean, in a small town, so it was,
Yeah.
I was kind of who I am and what I like doing. So sure, I mean, it's a very good topic, and
Yeah.
there's, like you said, 85% don't make it after the 2 generations. So my goal and a lot of others that are in the space are, want to see that turn around and try to make them last, for a lot of reasons, which we can talk about at another time.
Have you ever had any, and obviously saying this is a joke for anyone listening, have you ever had anyone in like the mafia contact you about family business?
No, I would not. I'm pretty particular on my clients, so that would not be that. Only on television shows is that entertaining. But
Yeah. No, those are not. Yeah, no, I've had on undercover FBI agents. Those are not good people. So I guess in the final minutes, just kind of some questions to toy with. Is we see something with like the hyper elite. I mean, truly the top like 400 families, right? Your Bezos, your Gates, your Jobs, your whoever, Walton. Is there does the idea of preservation of family business and generational wealth, does that necessarily scale up to them, or does it become a whole new paradigm when you get wealth that can like influence nations? Is there a whole like different ball game when it gets to that, or would your book still apply to that?
no, my book would actually still apply, and I have some friends that are billionaires, not the Gates level,
Yeah,
but well beyond the wealth that they would ever need for them and their families.
sure.
And they're very interested in perpetuating, being a steward basically of their
Yeah,
family's wealth, and they're very interested in philanthropy. So I mean, it's the image of self-indulgence, and um,
I don't think that's
I'm
accurate.
not seeing a lot of that
Yeah,
really. I mean, some might have an airplane, but
sure.
it's not. You don't even know it most of the time. They don't
Yeah,
talk about their jet. I mean,
yeah,
it's really how they can make the world a better place. And so the bad rap of capitalism, these days, and
yeah,
well,
yeah.
they're doing, it's not as bad as you would think from the media, at least in my circles.
I'm with you 100%. I think that's all. My friend Ivan Georgia is 6'4". He looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was Mr. Bulgaria. He's a weightlifter. He moved to Las Vegas. He's a gold medalist weightlifter. Got all these whey protein sponsors. Just living the life. I met him in 2011 working at a bar here in Ocean City when he was still getting his green card, and we stayed friends. And over the years, just kind of seeing him grow, literally and physically, as he became a gold medalist. I remember I was thinking, I was like, oh man, that guy's fit. But I was like, he just, this guy just does steroids. He just whatever. And then when he moved to the US, he actually came and lived with me specifically for like a month when I was still in college in Athens, Georgia. And I got to live with him. And it's the point of me saying this is it kind of makes me think of the image of, oh, the billionaire, they're just, jet setters. They're just a bunch of spoiled kids. And then what you're saying is like, no, these are a bunch of hardworking people. When I lived with Ivan, I was like, he got up earlier than me. You get up, we're going to the gym. I was like, I don't want to go. He's like, I don't want to go either, but we're going. We go to the gym. I do a half hour. I'd be like, all right, man, I'm burned out. I'd be like, we're just getting started. And he pushed me like 2 hours a day. I mean, to the point where I would be nauseous every day for like 30 days. Then he moved out. But my mindset has completely changed because I was like, there's someone where all I ever saw was like the curated photo on Instagram. Like, oh, bodybuilder. Versus when I lived with him, I was like, this guy never stops. He just grinds 24/7. I feel like that's kind of what you're conveying, right? Is like, trust fund kids. They have a penthouse in Manhattan. They don't know what work ethic is. Versus you're saying like, no, young presidents organizations or these people, you're like, these guys aren't flaunting it. If you're flaunting it, you probably actually don't have that much. The people that flaunt it aren't the ones with the mountains of cash, right?
I don't want to, I don't want to say that there's not people like
Oh,
that.
well, there are. Yeah, sure, there are.
But just the people in my world that are very ultra high net worth individuals and families, I don't see that. And I was pleased, as through my experiences to see how serious they were and how responsible they were.
Yeah.
And that's not to say they don't have 2 or 3 homes or something like that, but it's not the central focus. The focus is how they can make a difference.
Yeah.
Stewards, be a good steward, and then also help others. And I think that's important, and it keeps you grounded. I mean, it's pretty easy to potentially get ungrounded when you have some of these, benefits.
Yeah, just kind of float away.
They're most concerned about raising the next generation so they're not spoiled.
So they're not the same. Yeah.
And that, we spend a lot of time talking about, when you tell the next generation about their wealth and their, what they're going to inherit, and how do we not mess them up?
Yeah. You can't have a felony. You got to have a 3.9 GPA. Like, give them a little kick in the tail.
I mean, some, it's a concern that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next generation out. We want to motivate and driven to, to have somewhat of a responsible, purposeful life.
Yeah.
You could be a football coach in high school. It doesn't have to be running a family business, but it's not sitting around, drinking and water skiing or snow skiing every day.
Yeah, right. Because otherwise, you get what you're seeing now: a bunch of self-proclaimed Maoists and Marxists burning down cities, and they don't appreciate America, right? That's how I look at it. But so we don't dive off into politics. I guess we'll cut this one off at 32 minutes. I kept you for 2 minutes longer, but I will send you an email. Let's definitely set up another one. We can do sometime in January or something. I can get some Q&As from some people interested in family business, and you're the master, so we can get questions answered from the best. How's that sound? Mr. Isaac?
I lost the connection.
Oh, okay. I don't know if he can. Am I back? I don't think he can see or hear me. All right. Well, Mr. George Isaac, his book is available on Amazon. I will link it in the description of the top comment. I don't think he can. Yeah, we just lost him. Mr. George Isaac. I don't know what happened, but thanks for listening, everybody. Tune in and post your questions, and we can definitely do another episode in January. And he's not here, so I will send him the link to everybody else. There, is he back? Nope. All right. Well, I think it's over, so I'm going to send him an email. Mr. George Isaac.